with unBasic Black here, and today we are having another unbasic conversation. Today we are talking about Black Lives Matter. Where is it now? After a year, well, almost 2 years now, a year and 8 months almost, of protests and, kind of a racial reckoning that has been occurring across the world, not just in the United States. And it has kind of forced people to kind of look at how they treat people of color and how systematic racism has, in fact, kept the Black man down. So,
hey, May from unBasic Black, talking today about Black Lives Matter movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. We hadn't heard anything like major in a really long time. We had, and it makes it sound like there was like this series of unfortunate events, which they were, but it's like this one thing just like exploded, and then all of a sudden people were interested in Black Lives Matter. But it'd been building over time. But after the conviction of the police officer who killed George Floyd, then it just seems like things have kind of died down, like are non-existent. Nobody cares about Black people anymore or something.
And I think a lot of people have seen that we weren't making up a lot of the stories, well, most of the stories that they heard about. We weren't just playing the race card. And after all of this time that's passed, you don't see or hear a lot of information regarding Black Lives Matter. Now, one of the things I really wanted to talk about was, where are all the people? Right? Over the summer last year, there were so many protests, and I mean, people were out in droves to support this movement. But now we've kind of returned to a status quo. Now, people of color are not too surprised by that, but I do hope that the conversations that other people have had about this topic have still continued, and that people are still searching themselves as well as their organizations to see if they've been guilty or have played a part in any of the systematic racism or injustices that we've seen.
I'm wondering what has happened to the movement. So in that curiosity, I went onto their website, blacklivesmatter.com, and they did a synopsis they did a summary of 2020. It's a 42-page summary, but a summary nonetheless. And they talked about their origins. The summary talks about their origins and what they've done as a movement and what they're doing. They've set up three I guess entities, for lack of a better word. The Black Lives Matter Global Organization Foundation, something like that. I'll make sure I get the right information for you. Then there's the Black Lives Matter Grassroots, and then there is the BLM PAC, so Political Action Committee. They set those things up using a variety of sources. They talk about the allyship that grew when George Floyd was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back thing. So, and it was a really emotional summer mostly. Really emotional summer, of course, and it should have been. But so now that the emotions have died down, and now, because we Angel and I talked about it, it's like, in addition to we have a pandemic that's killing people, then there are people killing people who, these particular types of people never stopped killing another type of people. But okay, let me just stop being sugarcoating. So police officers, certain police officers have never stopped killing or beating within an inch of their lives Black people. So Um, just it's that, it was all of that together, and it was just a powder keg. So what's happened since the conviction of that police officer, and they talk about that in their summary.
The other thing that I wanted to talk about was that the fact that the Black Lives Matter movement faced a lot of scrutiny. And I think it was by design, because a lot of times when you're dealing from a place of fear, it only takes a whisper and then it spreads, right? So I think that who the powers that be, the man, whoever you want to call it, right? However you want to call it, I think there's some truth to the fact that it was by design that these whispers regarding how the Black Lives Matter Foundation organization was run. So that way, if you have people who are supporting an organization financially as well as with their time and energy, and in some cases risking their freedom, they want to know that their money is going to a worthy cause. They want to know that they're not being scammed. I think there's already a general mistrust when it comes to people of color, in particular Black people. So when you put whispers out there that says, hey, how's Black Lives Matter handling their finances? Is everything on the up and up? Then people start to question, which eventually leads to doubt. And once people start to doubt, then they kind of want to distance themselves and not really have too much to do with it. So I think we're seeing some of that as well.
And one of the, they're doing a bunch. And it's all like behind the scenes kind of stuff now. Before they were out in the forefront, people had gone to them for guidance because people wanted to get their point across, but not in the same way that the people did on January 6th. And then that's the whole thing there. Just the difference in the perception from particularly Fox News and outlets like them, where when it was Black people out in the streets protesting and like just only disrupting traffic. They weren't doing anything except walking the streets, holding up traffic, which is a protest in itself, because you're trying to get people's attention. Why are you blocking? Why are you in the middle of the street? Because I'm trying to let you know that my life matters, and people like me matter, and stop treating us like we're not a part of this country. It's not our fault that we're here. But since we're here, we're queer, we're here, get used to it. But since that's the case, then let us be. Leave us alone. Stop targeting us. Stop killing us. Stop. So, yeah, there were people who took advantage of the situation, and there was some looting and stuff like that, but the principal protests that happened were peaceful protests. They weren't trying to hurt anybody, but they were themselves kept getting hurt. And we're like, we're protesting what you're doing to us, and you're gonna do it anyway? Come on, man. Come on, Jack. So there was all of that, but then you get to January 6th, and those people. So with the protesters for George Floyd's murder, for Breonna Taylor's murder, for a whole bunch of murders that happened last year, by the police and citizens, just plain old people. Trayvon Martin minding his own business, and this guy decides that he wants to take matters into his own hands and ends up killing the boy. So the protesters were villainized by Fox News and outlets like them. Like there's no law, there's no order, there's none of that stuff. But when people like that boy who drove his car through the crowd and was running over people, they didn't say anything about him. He was some stupidity, like exercising his right as a citizen. And then the other guy who took it upon himself to come from another state to decide to help the policing matters, shoots and kills some people, and he gets peacefully taken down. Not even taken down. They give him like water and some food because he was hungry, and they sit down with him and they talk to him, and they, good job, man, or whatever, to this guy who's killing people. And then you get to January 6th, and they killed some people, and they do nasty stuff. Excuse me. They did nasty stuff. Like, it's gonna be gross. What possesses a person to poop in their hands, or pick up the poop and smear it on a wall? I'm glad that the FBI took it seriously. I don't think that most of those, I don't know how many people, but a good amount of people just didn't take it seriously enough. These people threatened our democracy because their guy didn't win. And they're still upset. When Hillary lost, no, let me do it this way, because people have different feelings about Hillary. It was kind of like that. Some people treat like the lesser two evils or whatever. Let's just say that when Trump won, they were telling everybody else, you need to just chill out because your candidate lost, so get over it. Stop whining about it. But did anybody storm the Capitol? Back then, there were protests. But did anybody storm the Capitol? Did anybody march through Washington, overrun Capitol Police, and do all kinds of craziness and storm through the legislative chamber, take over, sit in people's chairs, act like they own the place? I'm a taxpayer.
But one of the wonderful things I think is occurring right now, which I think is actually a good thing, is that we've kind of, and when I say we, that's people of color, but for the Black Lives Matter movement, they've kind of taken a step back. And as May mentioned, they're kind of focusing more on the legislation, because we can't say reform anymore. Reform clearly doesn't work. We've been trying to reform the system from inside and outside for generations. That hasn't worked. So now we have to work within the system that is designed to keep us down, right?
So where's Black Lives Matter and all this stuff? So now that protests are not as full or to capacity or whatever as they were last summer, now they're focusing on the background stuff. They're pushing legislation, and they're pushing candidates who are actually for, and something that was interesting in the website was that reform doesn't work. So they're not pushing reform, they're pushing change. But the systemic racism that's embedded in the DNA of our country, it necessitates full-blown change in order for things to get better. And I know how scary change is. I'm not a big fan of change. I'm a big, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But something is broken, so it does need to be fixed. Change is inevitable anyway. I have more wrinkles. I have more gray hair. And I know this is superficial, but I'm just using this as an example of change. Change is gonna happen. So Black Lives Matter, they're focusing on behind the scenes things. They've helped with this policy called Breathe. They've been working with Cory Booker and other politicians. So they recognize that there's a legal way to do things, but they know that it takes more than that. They're they're partnering with different. Then that's where the grassroots parts of it comes in. They're partnering with different grassroots organizations in America and then globally, because racism is a global thing. They're getting partnering with all these other organizations and just really trying to affect change. Um, and here's the cool thing about that, and I don't know that we really. It's not until we like sit down and look at things to where we say, "Oh, okay, that's it." Oh, that kind of reaction. So, like like systemic racism, it didn't. Well, yeah, it started out that way, but when the laws were introduced, it was kind of they snuck they sneaked the laws in.
So I think that's the best way to handle it. Whereas during last year, a big thing that came out of the Black Lives Matter movement was defund the police. I think that's very dangerous language, and I think the focus on it was intentional because people didn't take the time to really understand what was being said when people were calling for, the defunding of the police. But instead, it should have been more like reorganization, restructure. Let's redo this thing because the system that we currently have in place is not working. Not that we do not believe, and I say we as people of color, not the Black Lives Matter movement. Or the Black Lives Matter organization, I should say. We know that there's a need for police presence. We know that there is a need to have law, order, and discipline. It's just the way that it's been carried out that is not working, has not worked, and is not working. So there were definitely some issues that came about over the last couple of months, and now we're getting into years. And I think some of those issues were strategically highlighted or brought out in order to kind of silence the movement. But again, I think that's okay because some of the things that we saw last summer were individuals that were protesting that didn't really understand the message. They were just looking for anarchy. They were just looking for a chance to overthrow the government, or not overthrow the government, but overthrow a system that they felt was not. It was not a good system that did not work for the people. And we're not looking for our anarchy. That is not at all our message. And that is not at all what people of color want to be associated with. We want justice. We want truth. We want the American way. That's what we want. We want to be able to apply for a job and know that if we did not get that job, that a person that was more qualified than us did get the job. We want to know that we've been given a fair shot at housing. When we go to get a mortgage, we want to know that our interest rate is not ridiculously high just because of our color. These type of things. So that's what people of color, in particular Black people, in particular Black Americans, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the equality.
That's the one of the neat things about what the Black Lives Matter organization is doing is that they're going in, not, I don't want to say through the back door, but that's kind of how it is. It's like it's not something that's going to be in your face all the time. They're going behind the scenes and they're making changes behind the scenes, getting things in place. And what was it they said? Oh, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the justice, when she died, they were trying to push for a different nominee, and they were working against the nominee that Trump had picked. But the nominee that they wanted did not make it through, and they were disappointed. But that's part of the war. So that was a battle. They lost that one, so now they move on. They're moving on, and they're focusing on the war as a whole, and there are things that need to be in place um, that they're working towards. So I thought that was interesting about that. And they have they seem to be pretty transparent. They talk about their donations, and where the funding goes, and to whom the funding goes. So that I'm glad about too. And of course, they ask for donations and things like that, and regular support. And they're focusing on they focus on the allies. They other peoples have joined in with the Black Lives Matter movement, because if one group, I've said it too, but not but if one group is is marginalized, then that compromises the whole, because we're all part of this country. We all contribute to the well-being of this country, but there's just so much that's wrong and that needs to be fixed. All that to say, the Black Lives Matter, they're alive and well. They're just more behind the scenes right now. And again, you could check out their blacklivesmatter.com. They're on all social media platforms, because they know that they need to reach people of all ages and interests, kind of thing. And I was told that Facebook is becoming the new MySpace, like for old people. So young people, they go on to like TikTok and all this other stuff, and I don't understand half of that stuff anyway. So yeah, I'm old. But check out their website and see what they're doing, and then if there's something that you're interested in getting involved in, get involved, and definitely get involved in your local politics, and make sure that you're registered to vote, and that you become a resident of wherever you live, so that when you have something to say, you can say, I'm from this district, and you have proof because you have your ID, which some states is trying to make hard for people to get to, which is so weird. Are people of color that much of a threat to your way of life? Okay. All right. So all that to say, Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement, the Black Lives Matter organization is still around. They're still doing things. It's just um, they're the organizers are more behind the scenes. Now, when something pops off, like it has been, these, like it continues to be, they're there for that. Um, but if they're quiet, it's because they're doing things. They're not. It's not. They're not idle. They're doing things behind the scenes, trying to get some legislation into place, trying to help community organizations to be funded, because they offer grants, to be funded and to be able to take care of the needs of their individual communities, so that the community of the United States can be taken care of. So thanks for watching. May, again, from unBasic Black, unbasicblack.com. And I do want to say, alexijulie.com. Girl, you rock. Keep going. And of course, these. All right. I think that's all I have to say about that. That's all I got to say about that. All right, y'all be good to each other. Register to vote. Make sure that you set up your residency where you live if you're going to be there for a while, so that you can so that when you want your voice to be heard, you can actually do that, and you won't get dismissed. Like, oh, you're not even a resident here. Yes, I am. I am a resident, and I do have something to say, and you do need to listen, because I can vote you in and I can vote you out.
I think that it's the Black Lives Matter organization is doing great work, because you kind of have to play the game where the game is. And the game is in politics. The game is in, legislation, not just your presidential or your judicial legislation, but also in your local legislation. It's very important that you start with those grassroots and work your way up, because the state passes laws, right? You may have the federal government, but your state is passing your laws. So it's very important that you kind of understand where the Black Lives Matter movement fits into that. And the work that they're currently doing is a little bit more key, because you have people who are standing out with a megaphone and they, fist raised in the air. And for some people, and I will dare say some white people in particular, Republicans, that scares people. Right? That's kind of scary, because then they're like, what's going on? Are we going to have a January 6th? Don't even get me started on that. Because we already know that we are not equal. We already know that there's no equality. So in order to look at the complete and utter disregard for the American process that occurred in January, we cannot compare, because we know that we are not equal. Our treatment, we know, would have been totally different. So I think it's great that the Black Lives Matter movement has continued to thrive and continue to march forward, even if you don't see it splashed across the front page, because that doesn't really sell newspapers. Sitting back saying, oh, the Black Lives Matter movement, just went into Congress and got this bill passed, that doesn't sell newspapers. They want to see, the person with the megaphone and the fist raised, because that does sell newspapers. So I think it's important that you understand that the movement is still going strong, that people of color have been fighting this battle long before white people decided to bless us with their presence. Now, that's not to say that we have not had help along the way, because we know we have. There have been abolitionists. There have been, people during the civil rights movement that marched side by side and fought and died to help Black people achieve equality. But we still have such a long way to go. And I asked those same white people out there who had their fists raised in the air and their megaphones and were screaming Black Lives Matter and had it, written in marker across their faces, wherever they are today, I encourage them to continue the fight, because we're still in this battle and we're still fighting. Those issues that we had and protested against last summer are issues that we're still facing and have faced for generations. So stand with us, continue to stand with us and fight with us. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I think there's so much to unpack with everything that has occurred over the last year, like May said, but I think the main takeaway that I hope everybody will take away from everything that has occurred over the past year and a half is that the movement is still going strong. We are still fighting for equality, and that's a fight that will continue until all of our last breaths. No matter how many times they try to take that breath away from us, we will continue to fight on, and we will continue to seek justice for all of those that came before us and will come after us. So my name is Angel with unBasic Black, and we thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and comment down below, because we definitely want to know what you think. Have a great day, and thanks again for watching.